How are you, everybody? Good? We're gonna have a little fun. We're gonna talk about some things that, that's kind of dear to me, which is music. And I like to talk about the power of it. Because a lot of times we don't think about music having a power. We think about it in terms of it being entertainment. When I started to produce Public Enemy, the first thing I wanted to do was, I wanted to create an experiment. What is that experiment? That experiment was, how can I affect kids? How can I make them understand things that they would have never understood before listening to music? And the best way to kind of like go about that is, I'm going to give you a little background about me and how my music was shaped from my household. And I'm going to start off with lessons from my father. And since it's all Father's Day, everybody give a round of applause for all the fathers that are out there. You know, my father, he kind of like dominated the household. And he had speakers. We had speakers in every corner of the house. I mean, in the bathroom, in the living room, in the basement, in the bedrooms, in the dining room, everywhere there were speakers. So I guess that got me kind of like immersed in music. But the thing was, he played nothing but jazz. And I didn't like jazz. I didn't feel it. So he would play things like West Montgomery. I mean, all day long we would listen to West Montgomery. We would listen to John Coltrane. Sherry, can you hit up a little bit of Coltrane for us? Now this was playing in the background every day. And this particular song he loved the most. So I would listen to this song. But you know something? We're just going to listen to this because I got to give John some respect here because he deserves it. Okay, sure, you can turn that down. Ah, that was quick. Miles Davis was another one. All right? I mean, he taught me about listening to artists. And he used to give me stories about the artists. He always tells me what instrument they played, what other members that they played with. And I didn't want to listen. I was like, I don't really want to hear this because I don't even like this music. So but he had an incredible record collection. So I guess that got me to understand a lot about music and records. He also played, you can play the next clip. This was his favorite artist, Jimmy Smith. You can turn it up. You guys don't mind hearing it a little loud, do you? All right, let's go. Let's rock and roll. Was not a fan, even though that I appreciated the drum beat. I appreciated Jimmy Smith was an organist, and he would come in somewhere around now. And once again, this will be playing all the time. You can stop that, Sherry. Thank you. This is another artist, Moody Moo. This was one of the favorite pieces from a well-known DJ in New York City that used to play this every day. His name was Frankie Crocker. You could play that piece, Sherry, as well. Coming to a... Oh.
There I go, there I go, there I go.
How many people remember this? You guys remember this? You guys ever heard this before? Never? okay, I'm going to introduce some really cool stuff, Nancy. Now, this music will be playing in the household, like I said before, all the time. We're listening to it. He's dominating the airwaves. But at the same time, it taught me a bunch of things. It taught me about how music and musicians play together. And especially in the jazz world, a lot of them are playing different timings. They're playing different parts. They're playing, but at the same time, they have to create this kind of like dissonant harmony. So it taught me to understand how to be able to listen to people and understand their point of view, even if I never agreed with them. So that's what kind of like, and it also taught me this element of freedom in music. It taught me how anything can go as long as you have that swing that's associated with it. Now, when my father wasn't home, I could rummage through my mother's records. Now, my mother, she was like, to me, she was like more contemporary at that time. Now, you have to understand something. This is a household, now I'm a little kid, I'm like 3, 4 years old. This is a household in the 60s. So all the music that you listen to is basically from that era. And she would play, music like Aretha Franklin, all right? And this in particular was one that she played a lot. You can play this one, Sherry, so we get an understanding of what that feels like. Now, Aretha grew up in the church, so as you understand, you feel the gospel elements that's involved in it. And it's a very cool piece. And at that time, black was a dirty word. We used to call each other black, and that was like fighting terms. That's before we had an identity of self. But the thing that struck me about it was, why was she saying black? What is this black? And as a young kid, we started to adapt to that concept of blackness. And we started to take it on as a badge of honor because it was kind of like that thing that kind of made us feel negative about ourselves. And she would also play Nancy Wilson. And Nancy was beautiful. She taught me a lot about melodies, arrangements, singing. She was a jazz singer, of course. And you can play this piece right here. Now, this is what started me going into music. About this was, now this starts to give you a groove. My parents used to have parties, of course, because we had all the speakers, we had the hi-fi system, we had parties. And when we party, we want to hear some dance music. And that's what this particular record right here taught me a lot about. Wow, you gotta have a little groove in your movement. You gotta like have a little swing. And then we'll move. I'm gonna move this because we're moving Harry Belafonte. You know something? This was actually my grandmother's favorite artist. I mean, Calypso was my grandmother's record, so I had to go and sneak and try to play her 78s, so you can understand how that was. And keep in mind, I'm showing you all this because all this stuff, all this music shapes your backdrop. It shapes you as a person. It lets you understand a lot about yourself, a lot about whether or not you have a little rhythm or whether or not you have an ear for it. It teaches you a lot about togetherness. It teaches you a lot about love and tenderness. It teaches you a lot of things that it has taught me. And then my mother had a bunch of reggae records. Not many, but a bunch of them. And Toots and the Maytals was probably one of the records that kind of like stuck out to me. And why did it stick out to me? Because it had that island backdrop, that feel. It was feel-good music. This is another one. This is Fela. And Fela taught me a lot about Afro beat, taught me a lot about the drum, got me in touch with my roots, you know, being back in Africa. See, now you have to understand something. Back now we're moving more into the 70s. Back when we were coming up, Africa was like the place to be. We all had afros, we had dashikis, we all had our afro picks with the black power fist on them. All right, we had the red, black, and green t-shirts. You know, we was very much in touch with our roots. And Fela was probably one of the most influential artists that at that time that was playing. Let's play it. We're gonna play a small sample of Fela. You can play the next beat, Sherry. I'm gonna. That's not the one, but let's go to the next one. Now you notice that this is a lot of the music that's happening today. If you can,
That's the kind of rhythm.
A lot of the music today has this kind of rhythm, has this kind of feel.
In Africa, music is the all in all. In this corner,
Turn up, Sherry.
in that corner, music.
Oh, sorry. You know, I know you don't
This
have that.
particular rhythm is used by a particular sect.
I'm going to fly through the rest of this because we're running a little bit long time. The hardest thing for me was to try to condense this into something that is a 20 minutes that makes sense, but at the same time give you a feeling of understanding of what I was feeling as I'm making music. We'll move on to the next. Now we come now we're into the 70s deep. I mean, 71, 72. My cousin just came home from Vietnam, and he was actually in the Air Force, and he was an airplane mechanic. And he used to tell me stories about Nam and the frightening things that used to go on there. And it taught me a lot about war and what war is about. And when I was younger, we would have to worry about the draft. And the minute that you turn 18, draft is in. So I was lucky enough to have escaped, because by the time I got to be 18, the draft was over. I was like, phew, that was a good one. But what he brought back with him was music. And the music that he brought back was, wow, James Brown. Can we play a little bit of James Brown real quick? I mean,
I'd like to know, are you really ready for some super dynamite soul? Then thank you, because now it's start time. Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show, James Brown!
now if you understand about James Brown to me is, they call him the Godfather of Soul. He was like the godfather of my entire existence. And one of the reasons why that he was so important was, I mean, the album title is Revolution of the Mind. And you know, I'm a kid now, and I'm listening, I'm reading this title, and I'm saying, like, what does he mean by revolution of the mind? What is he talking about? But the one thing I did know that he was talking about was, he was talking about some get down, some freedom. He was talking about things that was like, that made you kind of like question who you were and what you was thinking about. Sly and the Family Stone is another one. He sat me down with Sly and the Family Stone and taught me every lyric in the record. All right? Every lyric. So I understood the entire album of This Is Stan. This is one of the most influential albums in my entire existence. Another one he taught me, Funkadelic. America Eats Its Young. Wow, what a title. I mean, amazing. These titles, you know, album covers back then were like movies to us. So we would read them backwards and forwards, frontwards and backwards, the credits, everything, and try to learn everything. I'm going to move up because I see I'm still running out of time here. Jimi Hendrix, the band of gypsies. Jimi Hendrix was probably the most influential guitarist of our time. And what he did was, for rock and roll, he created an entire new sound. Kool and the Gang. Once again, let's look at the title. Music is the message. What are they saying? All this stuff is resonating to me. Like, okay, wow, music, message, beats, rhymes, lyrics, soul, funk. What's all this? What is all this? Revolution? What is all this going to? He played me Love is the MFSB, which is called Mother, Father, Sister, Brother, and it was produced by Gamble and Huff. It was called Love is the Message. I mean, are you feeling what I'm feeling right now? I mean, just by saying the title, you feel something. So music has that kind of power. It has the power to change your entire existence, provided that you feed yourself the right type of music. Gil Scott-Heron taught me a lot about poets. This was probably the most influential album to me in that genre, Winter in America. It spawned the hit The Bottom. And that particular record was about alcohol abuse. Alcohol abuse in a record. Amazing. He also had a record that preceded that blew my mind, which was called The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. Great, great song. This right here is the seminal piece of work in R&B music in any period of time. Marvin Gaye. What's going on? What's so important about that record? The most important about that record was it talked about all the issues that were going on today. Not only that, it seamlessly wove those records into one big, almost in a classical form. The record didn't end. When one record started, the next one started. And that took me into a whole nother landscape and to understand how to keep the same rhythm happening, how to keep that moment going. The Last Poets, come on. Dominique, I'm quite sure you know about this. This group right here didn't even have any instrumentation. What you see right there is a conga player, and maybe they threw in a sax guy, and they had poems, they had rhymes, and this was almost very similar to what rap music was. So, because they were just talking in poems and rhythms and talking about issues that was happening. I mean, hardcore issues that was happening in the city, like junkies and heroin addicts and dope dealers and things of that nature. So it opened my entire frame up. Stevie Wonder, of course. You all know Stevie Wonder, but let's talk about music of my mind. Because everybody talks about Stevie Wonder in Songs of the Key of Life and all little nice music that he made. Stevie Wonder at this point was in thought. He was in deep understanding of trying to figure out what was happening in our world today. Music was reflecting what was going on with society at that time. And it also was changing the lives of the youth, which I was at that moment. Black Ivory. I can't even begin to talk about this group. This group was an R&B doo-wop group, if you would. But the difference in them is that they came from the city. They had beats, but at the same time they had nothing but love music. Their music was, that particular title song, Don't Turn Around, was also covered again with a poem from Nikki Giovanni. they took the instrumental and then put a poem on top of it. And that became a hit, just like Don't Turn Around. This right here has to be the album that kind of like set it off for me and stopped the presses to let me know that we have a mission in life. And can you just play me the Bob Marley piece? It's called Bob Marley, Sherry. Now the beautiful thing about this, the music is badass, okay? And his album opened in the gatefold, and his lyrics was written out. And I didn't understand, like, I couldn't understand the words that he was saying. And I was like, well, what is he saying? This particular track is called Crazy Bald Heads. What's a bald head? I got a bald head. What does that mean? He's talking about chasing these people out of his yard. All right, he's talking about getting the system from inside his pocket, changing the way things is. It sounds very familiar today. This is another group called the Escorts from New Jersey. They were in prison and they recorded a record. And I couldn't understand. I was like saying, how did they record a record inside the jails? It was amazing. That particular record right there, it opened me up to understand that how powerful music is. Here's my own lessons. We're gonna go real quick. I know I'm using a lot of time, but I'm gonna get through this. My own lessons. Pink Floyd. Animals. Why is that so important? Because what were they talking about? They were basically talking about the entire George Orwell 1984 vibration where people were just nothing but animals. That opened my brain up to another concept in music, which is concepts. An amazing term, an amazing exploration. Peter Tosh took it to the streets and he said, yo, we're going to legalize it. These are things that are resonating today, very loud, so these guys are not only musicians, to me they're prophets. Jimmy Cliff, he's going to play here. Or did he play here? I just saw a poster up front. The harder they come. Why is that so important? Jimmy Cliff, in the movie, this was the soundtrack in the movie. In the movie, Jimmy Cliff played a DJ, gangster DJ on the run from the police. And he was shooting up and getting into all kinds of stuff while at the same time while he's promoting his song on the radio. Amazing. Here's another group, Yes. Anybody familiar with Yes? Yeah. Okay. This opened my entire frame up to now. I'm into a whole realm of psychedelic. I'm listening to music that's ambient at the same time, that has a rhythm. At the same time, it's talking about something that has some kind of message. It's jazz, but it's pop, but it's rock, but it's new, it's trance, it's everything. It just took me into another world. The reason why this group is so important to me is because this was one of the first albums I bought. And this was when Diana Ross, who was a known superstar, came out and said, I'm going to front and support these new guys that are coming on the block, which is the Jackson 5. And they taught me a lot about bigness, Showtime, the intros, the music that they brought together, and they were all brothers. And the fact that their father and mother was behind them. So that taught me unity, harmony, and family, and collectivity. That was probably the most amazing thing that I've learned from them. Of course, you gotta have Isaac Hayes' Shaft. Because Isaac Hayes, now the one thing about Isaac Hayes, which he was not only he was a composer, he was a conductor, he was an arranger. He dealt with strings. something that was like strings on a record? How do you even manifest that? So his classical training came into and gave us some incredible and extraordinary pieces of work. Wow. Megadeth. I worked in a heavy metal record store. So I had to learn. I had to learn because here I am, a black guy in a heavy metal record store. These guys are like saying he doesn't know nothing about what we know about. This is our music. And so in learning about this, I came across this group. And I said, you know, what is about this that struck me? The title is Peace Sells, but who's buying? A great moment, because war, you gotta understand something, everything is about war, everything is about negativity, everything is about, these guys said, I'm gonna show it to you, but I'm gonna show it to you from a whole different side. Bad brains, eye against eye. Once again, brought me back to my roots, West Indian bound, but they did punk. And I'm like, what? Rick Rubin took me to see these guys in 1980 something, at some burnt out club where everybody was tripping on some kind of new drug that I didn't know anything about. But it was the most amazing concert that I've ever seen from these guys. Now, what does all that mean? We're going to bring this home now. The backdrop that I just showed, that I just displayed, is just a very small part of my entire musical background. I own something like maybe 15 or could be 20,000 records. And each one of these records taught me something about life. It taught me about myself. It taught me about how to deal with community. It taught me how to respond to the needs of the community. Because most of the artists that I listened to all did that. So here I am, I get a chance now to go into the studio with Rick Rubin, and under Rick Rubin's blessing, and produce for myself. Well, what do I want to do? I want to take my entire background, my entire history and knowledge of music that extended all the way back into the 60s into now, but I'm doing it into a new genre, which is rap music. And so I wanted to create what I consider to be a revolution, a movement. So comes Public Enemy's Yo, Bum Rush the Show. And what was the most important thing about this particular record is the fact that it was an entry. This was just a saying on the streets that we're gonna go bum, it's like if they don't let us in the gig, we're gonna go bum rushing. Alright? If they didn't let us into the music business, we're just gonna go bum rushing. As you can see, Public Enemy is on the other side of the DJ, preventing him from playing that garbage music. Oh, there's one missing. Can I go backwards? Oh, can I go forward? Ah, here we go. Order was wrong. This right here was the calling. It's called It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. I wanted to portray the feeling that you saw in Revolution of the Mind, but Revolution of the Mind by James Brown, but I also wanted to give it a new twist. So I knew that back in the days, a lot of people, especially a lot of people of the wider community, like meaning all the white communities, did not want to have an album cover of black people on it. So I said, you know what? Let me try and put them behind bars. Maybe that'll work. But that was part of it. One of the things that I've always wanted to do in Public Enemy was to create what I consider to be duality, all right? Because I think our world works off it. I wanted to make sure that anything that I'd done had a double meaning. Once again, you can't hold us back. We're behind bars. The most influential thing about that record is that the backside of that record had the group from the top down shot, and they were standing on the American flag. And what did that do? That resonated overseas. So what happened was now all the artists and people was trying to figure out, well, why are they doing that? And then all the young kids that was coming up was saying, wow, that was a bold statement. And why was that's a bold statement? To the point where a gentleman in Chicago created a display where you had to go in and step on the flag in order to see this display. Now, by him doing that, created a whole nother turn of ruckus that created another firestorm. So thus, for me, music is supposed to inspire, it's supposed to agitate, it's supposed to create something that was inside you, that was burning, but wants to come out. It's designed for me to make you want to demonstrate. It's an action term to me. It's not passive. And I think that a lot of the things that happens today in music is basically taking that out. So now we become passive. Music today can be used as a tool for change. Because the people, go give yourselves a round of applause. Because the people that come to me after years always tell me, Joe, you've changed my life. I had a guy that was in Miami, and he was a drug dealer. He was constantly being incarcerated. And when he got out of jail, he came in and said, he saw me, and he said, yo, you're Hank Shocklee. I said, yes. He said, you changed my life. I was in jail listening to your music. I was reading inside the album covers, we would put a book list so people can read. I was reading these books, and I'd gotten my law degree. Now I'm a lawyer. Now I'm helping kids that are incarcerated that cannot afford attorneys. These are things that, to me, what music can do. Once again, Apocalypse 91, Public Enemy. I'm going to end this because I think my time is well up. And I want to thank you guys for having me. I want to thank Tony from LOHAS for being here.